making you gay.
September 15th, 2022. As I mentioned in the last article, this one will be a multi-layered person-by-person, scene-by-scene account of the various scenes on stage and in the audience around me during the raging fourth section. Because to this day, I can only imagine these 5 songs as a symphony in 5 movements, not as separate pieces. The combination of the consistency, furious performance that went on, regardless of the song, and the repetition of visually bizarre scenes all over the stage for a whole section makes it impossible for me to make a clear differentiation of memories from song to song. Konami. I have to start with her first, otherwise I can't go on. I don't know if this is the concrete image I should give you, but after stirring up her beer, Konami went from Mincho mode up to the 3rd section to Super Mincho mode, which is an intensely powered up version of Mincho mode. In my sense, that looks more like a Hulk than a Super Saiyan. Swaying her upper body up and down, she moved around the stage and gets involved with various people. The following is a deliberate exaggeration. When soloing, she jumped up on the platform and strummed her guitar with twice the normal stroke size. The sound is also doubled. Her legs are spread twice as wide as in the normal Mincho mode, and her upper body sways as if she were a drunken person, more than doubling the intensity of the solo. When leaning backward, it's as if the back of her head is slammed into the stage with a backdrop. When leaning forward, it was as if she might stick her head into the stage. I think it was the first unleash when Konami jumped up on the platform 2 meters in front of me with such force after Psyche's long, passionate singing at the highest pitch. I was terrified that she would tumble down to the audience, and when she leaned her upper body forward to play the guitar, I was very worried about the unexpected. I guess it's possible because she is a woman with a soft body. If a man were in that position, he would not be able to play the guitar. A stretcher would have to have been brought out immediately. But here's what's amazing about her. Even when she strums her guitar with such fiery strokes and fury, there are no technical errors to be heard, at least from my seat. Every fire-breathing solo seemed to double or triple the thickness of the sound. I can't see much behind my hair, but the look on her face at that moment was probably either ecstatic or in angry Hulk mode. Well, if you think about it calmly, you wouldn't believe that a guitarist would go out of his or her way to do something that would cause him or her to forget himself, get drunk, and lose the ability to play guitar. If a normal person were to do that, it is usually assumed that he or she is pretending to be drunk and performing with exaggerated choreography on purpose for the, purpose of stage awakening. In that case, most people would probably interpret the beer as a tool for triggering the explosion of the band in oneself, rather than for getting drunk. However, Konami is a special person. I remember she was chewing on a piece of chocolate or something while she was emceeing and was scolded by Miku and Psyche at Osaka, "Don't talk while you're eating something." Nevertheless, this day, she started to eat something during MC time and called Psyche over to talk to her. Since it was not through the microphone, she did not get scolded on this particular day, but it was quite gutsy of her. Also, as I mentioned before, she was doing those stretches and exercises that she was scolded for in Sendai, and she was doing them secretly here as well. And as I mentioned in the early part of the articles, she was not afraid to grab Akane by the hair and force her to bend her face backward during freedom. Akane is a special enough woman too to continue drumming for several bars without missing a beat with her face thrown back, and then return to her original position with a big smile on her face. So, as far as Konami is concerned, This does not necessarily mean that she is following the scenario in her mind. She is the kind of person who does what she wants to do without thinking about the consequences. September 16th. From the beginning of Unleash, not only Konami, but also the other members of the band increased their volume and heat to the maximum, and I could feel their spirit as if it was trying to overwhelm me. I would like to write, as the song progressed, Konami's energy infected the other members, but at the same time, I felt as if all the maids had already become titans from the very beginning of the song. This really surprised me. Originally, Saiki and Akane would have glided into the song together, but Akane began to play the drums with so much power that for a moment, Saiki's voice was almost drowned out, at least from my seat. The next moment, however, Saiki began to sing at 200% with a rapid crescendo. Then Misa and Miku joined in, and needless to say, Konami joined in for an irresistible and serious fight with real swords. But I couldn't believe my eyes. What I heard was indeed a performance of life. But what I saw was a sight completely otherworldly to the sounds I heard. As the person closest to Konami, Saiki was both surprised and amused by Konami's Super Mincho transformation. She would exchange glances with Miku and others between songs, shrug her head in laughter, or go out of her way to approach Konami's side to watch her with interest. After leading the guitar solo with her highest-pitched, passionate singing, Saiki sat down with her back to the audience in front of Mincho, who was leaning forward with her upper body and developing an immersive and fiery solo, and began to look into Mincho's face from below. It was like an innocent child watching the best of the best with interest, or like an anxious Saiki checking to see if Mincho was all right. Then, closed the song with a scream. "Konami-chan, you're the best!" Also, it was a long solo part, probably the third song, Warning. In the middle of Super Mincho's solo barking with her facing Saiki, Saiki gently grabbed both of Konami's shoulders and seemed to say something to her. Konami heard this and happily rolled her upper body backward and finished the solo in the same position. I did not hear what she said. I couldn't see Mincho's expression because both of them were facing to the side from the audience. But I am sure it was a happy time for Mincho. What I'm trying to say is the speed of Saiki's so-called on and off switching and how much difference there is between the before and after. Just a moment before, she was singing at her best with wrinkled brow and red face, and then in the blink of an eye, she turns into a mischievous child, laughing with the other maids and looking out for Konami. Then, in the next moment, she would start singing again with an overwhelming presence and agitate the audience, especially in this section, making her voice, which had recently become thicker, sound even thicker, and repeatedly uttering her signature Unari Bushi, growling style. She sang her heart throughout almost the entire 5 songs. To my ears, a torrent of exquisite sound. To my eyes, the maids every day joking around with close friends. I was surprised at the gap between my ears and eyes and enjoyed it very much. Saiki was using a singing method known as Unari Bushi in the field of traditional Japanese song genre enka, in which the singer intentionally produces a muddy tone by squeezing his or her voice out. It is Saiki's specialty, and she has been using it a lot recently, especially at the hook line. However, it is not unique to Japan, as Stevie Wonder, for example, used it frequently. I have seen countless tragic scenes in the backstage of concerts. A young pianist just making his debut who broke down in tears the moment he returned backstage from the stage. A world-class tenor who locked himself in his dressing room with his head in his hands for over an hour after a recital. The cause of their discouragement and disappointment was always usually within themselves, I think. It was either tension or overexertion, too much force. Tension robs the fingers and throat of flexibility. It prevents free emotional movement. Overexertion leads to greed and greed leads to doing more than is necessary and depriving oneself of the naturalness of expression. In both contrast and dynamics, which I wrote about in my earlier article on Honkai, if you are greedy and exaggerate your expression too much, it will become deliberate and fail to reach the listener's heart. Moderation is the key to everything, but it is easier said than done. It is especially difficult to control your mind on stage at a live performance. BAND-MAID, too, has self-analyzed that they have a bad tendency to overexert themselves. But if they are afraid to do so and control their emotions too much, their performances will be really boring. In that sense, Psyche's switching between on and off may be positioned as the most necessary thing for herself and the maids, and it is done consciously. In addition to that, there is Misa. Misa had been playing with great dignity up to that point, but her presence in this section was particularly outstanding. What do I mean? Well, in the fourth section, which was filled with crazy excitement, only Misa was the usual Misa. To be precise, she was more enthusiastic than usual and played extremely dynamic, but to the outside eye, there was no noticeable change like Konami. She was passionate yet cool and did her job as she always does. This was the only belief I could see in her head. I use the word titan for the maids in this section because I felt like the figure of Misa was symbolic of all the maids at this time. In other words, they were not only enlarged in their heads, hearts, arms, and throats. Their heads, their hearts, and their entire being have grown huge, and because these titans were performing as they always had, the results was that their volume, technique, persuasiveness, and power had naturally grown in proportion to the size of their bodies. The symbol of this was Misa. As I have mentioned many times before, my seat was not in the best place where I could hear her clearly, but even so, I could hear that the thickness and power of her sound was multiplied several times in this section. In the midst of the overwhelming performance of the entire band, her bass was actively striving to play a supporting role in the music, both sonically and structurally. Of course, as always, with a strong sense of self-assertion, and especially the solos. I will never forget her solos on No God and the final domination until my dying day.